In this video, we'll be looking at an updated version of the Retevis RA89 HT. It's called the RA89R. Let's get into it. Retevis has been teasing the new RA89R HAM and RA89G GMRS HT for a couple of months now. They recently sent me those radios to review, and we're going to take a look at the RA89R in this video. I'll link my review to the RA89G review in the description and on the end card to this video. The RA89R is in many ways a completely new radio. At just under $70, it's at the top end of the budget HT category, and it includes some styling changes and both adds and subtracts from the features found in the older RA89. From a style perspective, the RA89R stands a bit taller, has two push-to-talk buttons, has no flashlight, and its battery is a bit bigger at 2,800 milliamp hours. The RA89R adds a USB-C connection on the radio, not the battery, for charging and programming, although it keeps the USB-C on the battery too. It also has the typical K1 connector for radio accessories common on most ham HTs. Unlike the RA89, the RA89R is not IP67 water protected. It has an IP54 rating, which translates into dust protection and water splash protection, but not submersion. On the inside, there are a couple of big changes too. First, on the takeaway side, the RA89R is rated up to 5 watts, where the RA89 was rated up to 10 watts. For a lot of you, the additions are going to be very positive, however. First, the radio has expanded Bluetooth capability. This includes smartphone app programming through the Retevis app, as well as connectivity to things like Bluetooth mics and headsets. Next, the radio has a crossband repeater function. When selected, the radio will repeat what it hears on the VHF on the selected UHF frequency and vice versa. Choices are VHF to UHF, UHF to VHF, or both simultaneously. This allows you to connect your RA89R to an elevated external antenna and use other HTs to increase their coverage area at a community event or when out camping or other outdoor activity. Another add is the inclusion of airband receive capability. Lots of folks seem to like this feature, so Retevis added it to the RA89R. The last thing I'm going to mention is the weather alert system. While I didn't see basic NOAA weather channel monitoring, the radio will allow you to set weather alerts. So when the NOAA weather channel you select transmits an alert subtone, the RA89R will alert you to the event. Let's change cameras and take a look at what comes in a box and a closer look at the radio itself. So here's the box that the RA89R comes in. Let's take a look at what we find inside. Let's start with the owner's manual or the user manual here. It's labeled RA89R. It's got the table of contents, and then it's got the usual diagrams and how to put on the antenna and some of the various icons that are going to be on the screen. Here are some button combinations that you would use to do certain things with the radio. Here's an extended list of all the items in the menu, and then with some function descriptions for some of the things like changing the power and programming memory channels and that kind of thing. So that's the owner's manual here. And the thing I want to point out that this radio has here, it's in item number 24, and that's crossband repeat, which is kind of handy, but you also need to pay attention to the fact that you don't want it on when you don't think it's on. Because that is a great way if you have a frequency dialed in one of your registers that's not in the amateur bands for you to be transmitting outside of band. So you want to be mindful of crossband repeat. And generally, that's going to be off unless you're doing it on purpose, and then circle back and make sure you turn it back off. Here's some of the settings that you can use with DTMF and tones and that kind of thing. So all in all, it's a pretty good manual. If you have any of these other radios, you'll see that the menu is a little different, but it contains the same things. Now, to charge the radio, it comes with a little wall wart with the USB-A on this side, in this case with US 120 volt kind of connectors on it. And then it comes with a desktop charger, which is kind of cool for those of you who like desktop chargers. It plugs in with the USB-C cable down here. That USB-C can be any USB-C cable for power into the charger. This USB-C cable that comes with the radio can be used to charge it, but my sense is that with this large housing here on the A side, this can also be used for programming, and we'll see that there's a USB-C connector on the side of the radio for programming instead of using that K1 connector. And so here are our charging accessories. Comes with a lanyard. Those are always popular. I tend to use them quite often. And then it came with a belt clip that I've already mounted, and I'll show you that here in just a second. And last but not least, there's an antenna. And so the antenna it's got a little bit of flexibility, a little rubber ducky. The frequency range is printed on the bottom here, as you often find with these. And then you notice that the plug or the male side is here in the base of the antenna. So the female or the socket side is going to be in the radio itself. Speaking of the radio, let's do a quick tour of that as well. Before we jump into the specifics on the RA89 Alpha, we've got the RA89A here. This is the RA89 here, the previous version. I've had this for several years. It's a nice little radio, and you can see that the new version is a little bit taller. It's got a little bit bigger screen, but it has the same kind of F and AB switches with this one has got little lines on the button versus the up and down on the previous version of the radio. And then this radio had a screw-in cover and then was programmed via a programming cable versus the USB-C on the A. And this one had one push-to-talk with the programmable side keys and then a USB-C charger on the back of the battery, whereas this radio, as we look at the back, has got that same charger on the back of the battery and some of the other buttons that we've seen that work the same. The menus are very similar, and they will operate the same between the two radios. So if you're upgrading from the RA89 to the RA89A, it's going to be a simple thing for you to do. So let's look here. We've got the speaker behind the grill, the branding up here, little microphone. We've got a fairly large LCD screen, so it's going to be visible in the daylight, which some of the color screens are not. We've got the menu or function key, which is the F here, A, B, up and down, the various numbers here, along with menu shortcuts. So if we were in function and scan, you could go, function 1 or function 5 to go to squelch and so forth. And then as we rotate around the radio, we've got two push-to-talks. They're both orange. This will transmit on the upper register, this one the lower, and then there is some programmability to side key 1 and side key 2. Here is that belt clip that I pointed out to you earlier. It screws into the battery. The battery covers the entire back of the radio, so it's a pretty good sized battery. There is that USB-C I pointed to you already, along with the charge indicator LED right here. As we move over here, we can pull down this, and we've got a K1 connector, but that's for accessories. So if you wanted to plug in a wired mic and headset or any of the other accessories that might go into a K1 connector, you can use those here. And then you can also then program and charge, I believe. We'll have to see when we get the power on this thing. The other USB-C input right here on this side. So now at the top, I've got the antenna screwed on. It's the female side on this side, male on the antenna, on-off switch, and then we've got the indicator for transmit and receive there on the top of the radio. So that's our power off tour. Hey, if you're finding this video helpful, please click the thumbs up button below the video and be sure to subscribe to the Gadget Talk channel if you haven't already. There are also join and thanks buttons below the video for those who might want to support the channel more directly. As always, I've got affiliate links to the radio and a couple of other related items in the description below. Now, back to the review. Here's a quick power on tour, including a view of the menu system. So let's turn the radio on. We'll turn it on here. There's a male voice that says welcome, and then we've got the display, and you can see it's an LCD display, so it should be pretty easy to see across the top. There are a number of icons. So we've got low powered, the dual watch, we've got wideband, there's the battery status, channel number here, and then the AB will move us between up and down here, and then the F will move us into menu, which we'll look at in just a second. A short press on the radio button down here, or the hashtag. It changes us into frequency mode or back to channel mode. And then on the side keys, and these are just how they come out of the box. You can make some changes to these in the software. So a short press on side key 1, change the power. You can see it went from low to high power, medium power, low power, high power, and so forth. A long press on this top side key. Start scanning. You can see the little Z icon comes in there. Another long press. We'll turn it off. The lower side key turns the FM radio on. Another press turns it off. And a long press hits the transmit. I'm not sure what that is. We'll have to see when we connect it to the app or to the computer to what that choice happens to be. Now, we mentioned that the menus are a little different, so let's look at those just briefly. So we'll press the function button to go into menu. We'll press it again, and we'll take us out. We go into menu and press AB. That will also take us out. So if we go into menu and then go up, now we start working our way through the menu system. So there's scan and Vox and power and all the things you're used to looking at. Backlight, how bright, all that kind of stuff is all there. To make a change, let's go to press number 1, should take us to scan. It did. So we press menu again, scan, we press down. We can go to item number 51, which is the radio version and software, and we can work our way down. Now, I started at the bottom because I wanted to look at all of these Bluetooth menus. And so we've got the Bluetooth menu. We'll go in there. We'll go menu again so we can switch it on. We got to turn it on for it to work with the app. When you hit that again, you can see BT turned on up there, so we know that we've got Bluetooth on. Normally, you're going to want to run with it off just to save battery. So I'm going to go back here to Bluetooth again. And I'm going to go through these. You can see the speaker volume, mic gain, hold time. We can pair or pairing. This radio will allow you to use a Bluetooth headset or a Bluetooth speaker mic. I want to turn that off, so I'm going to go there, press down, turn it off, confirm it by pressing the function switch again, and then I'm going to back myself out of the menu altogether. Now, the radio hasn't been charged since I took it out of the box. You can see that the radio battery indicator is about to indicate that it's going to be turning off. But we've seen what we've got here. So we've got these various buttons. We've seen how the menu goes, what this little radio button down here does in terms of making changes between VFO. I haven't seen weather. It's got a weather alert, which will give you a little cloud icon up there, but I haven't seen how to access the weather directly. It may be one of those things that I'm going to have to program those VHF weather channels into the radio independently, because I haven't found that they're programmed into the firmware, for example. So that's our power on tour of the Retevis RA89R. Now, let's test the RA89R to measure power output and signal purity. So let's look at the power output for the RA89R. We'll run through the high, medium, and low on both 2 meters and 70 centimeters. We're going into this little power meter, which has a dummy load on the back. So let's give it a shot. Here's high power in 2 meters. About 3.5 watts. Here's medium. 1.2 watts. And here's low, 0.28 watts. So that's high, medium, and low on 2 meters. Let's go up to 70 centimeters. So here's high on 70 centimeters, a little over 4. Here's medium, 1.2. And here's low, 0.3. So that's high, medium, and low on 70 centimeters. So for a 5-watt radio, this is pretty typical of what you see in this category. So we've got the RA89R set up here. I've got it on the VHF call frequency. I've got the power set to high with a 40 dB in line there to keep from damaging my tiny SA. Ultra, this blue line is minus 16.02, which corresponds to 25 microwatts that spurious emissions need to be under. And we're going to be looking for any spurs to be 40 below the fundamental. And so let's give a press here. I'm going to let it scan through a couple of times to fill all the data points that the device samples on. So we'll press now. Okay, so we've got a couple of spurs here. This one up here at 732 is between 30 and 40 below, but these two are definitely 40 below, and they're all 3 below the 25 microwatt line. So all in all, you can see some of them fall off here as I've got the press to talk pressed. And so it looks pretty good. Completely clean? No. Acceptable? Yeah, especially for these medium to low price Chinese radios, and Retevis does a pretty good job. This is quite similar to the RA89 that I showed you earlier. It had a very similar spur pattern. Wasn't completely clean, but not too bad. Before we take a look at radio programming, here's a quick audio demo. RA89R receive test 1 2 3 3 2 1 test. Test out. RA89R, transmit test 1 2 3 3 2 1 test out. Many of you will find the Bluetooth programming through the Retevis app appealing. Personally, I like setting up the radio initially with the CPS on the computer. I then update on the app as I need to. So here's a quick look at the Retevis app and programming, and this time we're going to take a look at the RA89R, and so I haven't used that yet, so I'm going to click Add Radio. I'm going to click RA89R. It found the radio, and it identified it as being available, and that's because I've got the Bluetooth on the radio. It's sitting here beside me. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to add the device. You can see it's connecting. The radio's connected. And now my Retevis RA89R is connected here on this main splash page to the programming app. Now I've programmed this using the CPS that we'll look at here in just a second. So when I touch here, it's going to come in, and then I can read data, and there's going to be a number of channels here that are going to come through. So we'll read. As you can see, it reads pretty fast. The little red light on top of the radio was flashing while that happened. And then now if I go into basic settings, these are the things in the menu. And so I want the display to show the channel name. The squelch I turn down to 3. Roger beep is off. All of these things here are the things that you can adjust individually in the radio itself, to include programming the user keys and all of that kind of thing. You can see them all here. And so since I've just done those, I'm not going to make any changes, so we'll go back. And now I'm going to go to channels, and I'm going to touch the available channels. It's listed for channel 1, and it shows my channel 1. I've named it VHF call 14652 for both transmit and receive. And then I don't have any CTCSSs or anything else here on that channel. And so if I touch the channel, it's going to display all the channels that are available for me to program into. And so now I'm going to touch the channel here. I'm going to go to channel 2. It's UHF call with the UHF call stuff. I can make all those changes. Channel 7 is another repeater here in the Phoenix on the Chase Tower downtown. There's the frequency with the offset. You don't specify the offset, you add in the frequencies. It's got a CTCSS code and so forth. And so all of this stuff is programmable here on the radio using these various buttons. Channel 31, I've moved up into my UHF repeaters. This is one that's close by. There's a limited number of characters in the channel name, so they've been abbreviated here. This is Shaw Butte, which isn't too far from where I live. Again, the frequency is there with the UHF offset set and a CTCSS code as well. Now when we go into the VFO, which is basically where the VFO is going to start, I've got it starting at 146.58. That was the last channel that I used when I did some recording here for this review. And so that populated that. So that's where it's going to come up on VFO. So we know what it's set to. Signaling is DTMF signaling. I don't do much of that. FM radio, you have channels here that you can put in various FM radio stations in your area. To do that, you just simply touch it, and then you can add the frequency for the radio station that you want to list, which allows you to scan by channels or increase and decrease by channels when you're using the radio itself. And then here at the end, we can save data, and it's going to save the file. And so we've got all that saved now. And so we go back here one more time, and then we've got the radio. We'll go back to that main display again. And we want to write data. And so you can see that I touched the save button more than once, and so I've got a couple of different saves here. So we're going to take the one that we used most recently, and then we're going to write it back to the radio. The radio is flashing the green light on top right now, and it's writing all that information back to the RA89R. Now here's a quick overview of the factory CPS. As with most factory CPSs, the major drawback is that it doesn't support importing channel lists. This can make programming a bunch of channels a bit tedious, but I find it easier than either the app or programming on the radio itself. Now, I know somebody will ask, so no, the RA89R is not supported by Chirp yet. As always, the first thing we want to do is we want to check our device manager, and you can see that this USB-C to USB-A cable that come with the radio is a CH340 type of chip in the radio, and so we've got that in here. And so we're going to go up to settings. We're going to pick our COM port, which was COM 7, and then we want to read from the radio. So we can either do that with these drop down menus or with these icons. And so I'm going to read from the radio. You can see it reads fairly promptly. The radio flashed red while the reading was happening, and it says success, so we're good there. And now you can see the various frequencies that I have put in here. So here are some basic channels: UHF, VHF call, some UHF repeaters. I like to go to Quartzsite for the Quartz Fest, so I put a couple of Quartzsite channels in there, then my UHF repeaters. Here I put in some airband channels in channels 50 to 57 for a nearby airport. And then here at the bottom, I put in the weather channels because I couldn't find where they were programmed in. I know they are, but they're accessed via an alert switch, not just a monitoring switch. So I've got them in here at the bottom of the list so I can listen to a weather forecast regardless of where I am. I can just cycle through until I find the station that's coming in. So those are the channels here. If you double click this, it gives you an expanded window where you can put in some of the things that aren't listed here, but for the most part everything you need is going to be listed right here. In the VFO, you can see here it says 146.58. That happens to be the last channel that I used. We go into basic. This gives us in one place just all of the various selections that you have from your radio's menu, so you can do that programming via drop-down boxes instead of button pushes. What I haven't seen in this list is the crossband repeater switch, so that one you need to turn on the radio, and that one's an important one to know where it is so that you don't inadvertently crossband repeat out of the bands you're authorized to deal with. Now I go into DTMF. Here are the various things that are there. I haven't messed with that. I don't generally deal with that. 2-tone and 5-tone signaling. Again, I don't mess with that. The frequency range here gives me the radio's frequency range. So in this case, here's my lower VHF, my upper VHF, and then for receive, and then for transmit. So this one appears to be fairly unlocked. The same thing here with the UHF up in the 450 megahertz area. And then the radio. These are the FM stations that you can select. So with all that done, then I would simply, go into File, Save As. I would give it a name, and then I put it where I want it on my computer so I can get to it. And then when I'm done, I can click the green button here and write that information back to the radio, and you can see that happens quite promptly. So that is a quick snapshot of the Retevis CPS for the RA89R. Retevis sells a Bluetooth mic for this radio. It's about $30. I used a mic from another brand that connected to the RA89R in terms of audio, but I couldn't get the PTT function to work. I've had that happen with other brands too, so if you're planning on using a Bluetooth mic, you should probably get theirs. All in all, the Retevis RA89R is a nice little radio. I'd consider it a full-size HT that feels sturdy and comes with a fairly large battery. I've had the radio out in bright sunlight and the screen is easily readable. I've also been pleased with the airband reception. I was able to hear transmissions from a nearby airport quite clearly from my back patio, which isn't always the case with airband-enabled HTs. Again, thanks to Retevis for providing the radio for this review. Please give the video a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Join me over here for my review of the GMRS version of this radio. Thanks for watching, and 73.